Where am I looking?
You're looking straight. You're live right
I'm
now.
looking right there. Okay.
We're live.
So what do you want to talk about?
You know what, Andrew? I want to talk about you.
Oh God, God help us.
Yeah. So I got to tell you guys a story. So as you know, we're broadcasting live from IEM on the floor, and it's been super busy. But I was having a conversation with my friend here. I said, hey, he's got a book that's coming out. Talk a little bit about that. It's on project management for emergency managers. And I think that's brilliant. I really think that every school program out there should be having a project management course for the emergency manager program. That's my personal opinion. So now, not only is a book coming out, not only is the book coming out,
yes,
but we have a course too.
We have a course. That's right.
And we launched it. I say we.
Yes, we did.
I was in the class. We launched it here at IEM. Region 9 sponsored the thing, and you put it on. It was a fantastic class.
That's right. Yeah.
Talk about the course a little bit.
Well, so I was very pleased, and I want to thank you for hosting it. Region 9 was the first to do it. We did it 2-day. It was a condensed session that we held at the Christ Cathedral, and it ran beautifully. 2 days really focused on the core of project management skills required for emergency managers. Basics of, so why is it important? The front end, which is where do projects emanate from in the emergency management and public safety field, looking at everything from our THIRA analyses, after action reviews, improvement plans, everything to like lawsuits, unfortunately.
Right.
And then going into how do we understand our stakeholders? How do we look at them? How do we analyze them? And then feeding that into our scope, understanding the requirements, the schedule and budget and all that good stuff. And not just covering it, but having hands-on work. People brought their projects into the classroom. We worked on them as teams. And I think they walked away with the plans and with the semblance of how to get that started.
There's two things from the course that I really found useful. I mean, there's more than two things, but two things that really I was blew my mind a little bit. One was when we were working on the team I was on the project we're working on, the collaboration and the conversation about that project. Instead of having one person, sitting there. So we really delve into it. And I had a lot of questions, when we were going into it. And it was nice to see everybody sort of participated in that. But understanding, when I would say before, if somebody said, oh, how long is it going to take you to do this? I'd take a swag. I'd be like, 6 months. I don't know. Maybe it's 6 weeks. I have no clue, but I'm just swagging it. This actually gives you the skills and the tools to be able to march out how long that's going to take. And so we did that on the project. And that's what I'm saying. It was really kind of gave you that ability. We had some artificialities built into it because it's the class.
Sure.
But what I thought was really interesting was when we were doing just the class exercise and we had the same exact task, right? Didn't say how long it was good. So 2 groups are doing it. My group came up with 360 days or something like that, just short shy of a year. The other group was 288.
That's right.
Right. And I'm like, how the heck did we do the exact same project? And we looked at it going, it's going to be 360. They went 288. And it's really about how you just manage the time.
It's how you sequence the tasks. Sequence the tasks. And whether is that a logical sequence of work? What are the dependencies that are there? What sort of things are you taking into consideration? So all of it has to do with that. And, as you said, there were some artificialities in there that you have to, assume in some cases. But, what's important to understand is what are the rules? What are the mechanics? And, I think you pointed out too, is it's collaboration.
Yes,
that's a key component. And it's not just throwing people together and thinking, okay, how are we going to do this? But how do you organize it to make it effective? You've seen, I'm sure, group work where you bring in large, numbers of teams together and you have a lot of discussion that goes on, but the output isn't as effective, isn't as productive as we would like to see.
Yes.
So this is where, when you use the process effectively, and you have the right team members and you have the right commitment, you really can produce a very valuable result to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this is the group I worked with, all very, seasoned emergency management professionals. And we worked through the problem together,
Mm-hmm.
right? There was like, we worked through that problem. So, okay, here are the parameters. This is what we have to do. Let's work through the problem. Let's make sure the math comes out right. And I thought that was kind of a great process. The other thing I thought was great about the class, our class was a little small because it was the pilot class, but was the conversation that was happening between not just the groups or ourselves, but between all the groups and great questions. And I thought that was, I think you did a good job, by the way, of pulling questions out of people, as a good professor does. Just saying.
Oh my, yes. I have been facilitating for some time. I've been teaching project management for about 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I've been a practicing project manager for 30 years. So, and I've been teaching emergency management for about 10 years. So putting all that together, it's very fulfilling, and right. and what's nice is to see. So the one thing is, and I say this is sort of like separate but related, is activity-based learning and hands-on learning is the most effective method for conveying things. You gotta, it's the, teach a man to fish, or you feed him. If you feed a man a fish, give him,
feed him for one day,
teach a man to fish, and teach a person to fish. Excuse me, teach a person to fish.
Right.
Let's rewind. So, teach a person to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. But the teaching, having them do it rather than you do it, it's not as you say, the sage on the stage.
Right.
It's the guide on the side. Giving people the opportunity to actually practice. I mean, I show you the method before.
Right.
I show you how to do, for example, how to do critical path method.
Right.
And then the teams then engage in it. And if they have questions about it, then I'm there to support and identify maybe, is this logic sensible? Does that work?
Right.
In terms of this sequence of tasks?
So, I mean, I have my adult teaching credential that I got here in California. It's like one of those things that we used to have to get, and don't need them anymore. But I went through the course, and it was a really great course, by the way. And it's a certificate, right? It's a credential. So you go through the program, and one of the things they really stressed on it was like you show one, have them do one, and then have them teach one.
Right.
And then so you had that built in. Right?
I did,
because I was late because I had some conflict, and so I told Andrew, I said, "Oh, I'm late. Maybe I shouldn't really participate in the class." And he goes, "No, I got you." So I walk in the classroom. Everybody sits around, and he goes, "All right, everybody, teach back to Todd." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks first of all, thanks for singling me out there, buddy." Right? But no, but they did. They all taught back to me, and each student, I think, had a very good presentation.
Yeah. And that's, I think, a really effective tool, right? It's not just an effective tool for reinforcing the information. It's also a great tool for bringing everyone back together. We had the day before. So everyone, when you think about it, when you start a course in the morning, it's, people are coming in, they're still sort of getting warmed up. This is a way to really rapidly bring people back up to speed again.
Sure.
We talk about one of the things that we talked about in terms of estimating is the human productivity rule, right?
Right.
You start off in the morning, you're not as productive as you are, let's say, a half an hour into your day. This is a way to actually ramp that up as a group, so everyone's sort of at the same energy level. You know
what that was fun is when you talk about human productivity is when you ask that question to the class, like, hey, like, what is the average person's productivity during a work day?
Yes.
Right? And I actually knew the answer, right? And so I'm like I went around, I'm like, 5, like it's actually 5.8 or something like that. But anyway, and
that range was pretty wide. It went from 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours. I think
like
the top was maybe 6.
6, yeah. I think it was 6 or 8. It was
out of an 8 hour.
Yeah, it wasn't 6. It was 6. I'm like, yeah. But the 2 hour one kind of cracked me up. I'm like, yeah, they're like 2 hours of productivity. I'm like, wow. I said, are we paying government workers way too much or something? I mean, it's like 2 hours ago. Yeah. So
I'll leave my comment aside.
yeah, but that's the crazy part about it, right? I mean, like this. But the thing is this project management course, it takes that guesswork out of it, right? You say this is going to be a 10-hour task. This is going to be an 8-hour task. It's good, whatever. This is how many days it's going to take you to do it. And I wish construction workers were construction companies were that way, because like there was a freeway down the street for me that was supposed to have been done last year, and they're still working on it. So
there's other issues at play there. There's other issues that come into play when it comes to those types of construction projects.
Yes, I know. It just whenever they go,
it's called job security in some ways.
Yeah, whenever they're like, hey, yeah, our project it's going to be done in March of 2023. You're like, damn, no, it's going to be done.
So I'll tell you, there is a project, just as an example.
Okay.
The reconstruction of the Pentagon after the 9/11 attack was on time, was actually ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Met the quality standards.
Under budget too, right?
And on either on budget or under budget.
Right. I think I heard that before. Yeah.
It actually won an award from the Project Management Institute on the project of the year when it was completed.
Yeah, you want to hear some so a little inside story here, some funny coincidence. So the guy who was actually first tasked with building the Freedom Tower, or to project management, he was actually the old city manager of the town where I grew up.
Is that right?
Yep. Kevin Ringler, yeah. Yeah, so I think it was Kevin. Yeah, so yeah, he was the old city manager of the town, or city supervisor. So we have town supervisors elected for a position, like a mayor. But yeah, it's kind of. He owned a bowling alley in my town, the Dell Lanes bowling alley. So yeah, kind of weird, isn't it?
From bowling alleys to Freedom Tower.
So from bowling alley to a small town city supervisor to the Freedom Tower.
That's an interesting career progression.
Yeah, man. If you could do it, anybody could do it. I think.
Right? So it sort of sounds like emergency managers. We're not quite sure where they might come into the profession.
Right. But I just, kind of those building project management, right? Think about building that thing. That thing was so.
So what's interesting about that project? So I actually consulted with, or spoke to, had a chance to interview some folks who worked on that at different levels of project management within the Freedom Tower when they were building it out. And what was interesting is that they actually went through the whole supply chain. So they actually had to go back to the original manufacturers to look at the schedule for providing some of the structural steel. The structural steel that was used in the Freedom Tower didn't come from the United States, didn't come from other countries, came from Belgium.
Really?
The standards, the quality standards, the tensile strength of that steel had to meet certain requirements.
Really?
I won't share those requirements here, but they are, yes, it's some of the strongest steel work in the world. And so so they also, not just they had to make sure that it was, that the supply chain was secure and was steady, also getting it into the port and then getting it into Lower Manhattan required coordination.
Oh, right.
Because you can't just move these steel girders in, with regular traffic. So it had to come in, early in the morning. They had a Lower Manhattan Construction Command Center set up to organize all of that. And then on top of that, all the cement that needed to be produced. The needs for that, when you think about, that in terms of sourcing the amount of cement that goes in there.
Yeah.
Because there's other construction that's going on as well. So all of that had to be managed. Otherwise, basically, you're going to put a strain on the resources.
Hey, come over here, Jake. So not to interrupt this guy right here, he sang the national anthem at the opening, and it was a beautiful job. Great
I think he's
job.
Ready for the Super Bowl.
Say hi.
Hello out there, everybody. It's glad to be here. Great expo here at the basically, everyone's just having a great time over here at the International Association of Emergency Managers. Certainly don't want to miss this in the future. If you get an opportunity, come and network and make sure that you are out here learning about the new innovative things that are happening out in our communities. It's important that we take all this back to our communities and make sure we're talking and preaching the message about preparedness, because we know it's not a matter of if, but when.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's really why it's so important that we're out here seeing all the great resources out here in our community, what that means for us, how we can take those resources and incorporate them into what we're doing. and then really leveraging those partnerships that we establish at events just like this. And I think if nothing else, that's what makes attending these conferences worth every cent. And it's worthwhile for you out there, especially if you're getting new in emergency management, or you're looking at what this might look like in the future. By all means, please make sure you take advantage of these opportunities, because it's well worth your time and your investment in your career. So thanks for the opportunity.
And thanks for stopping by, bud.
All right. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. That was a nice interruption a little bit, but
Yeah, I have to say, I think it was said at the session that it was like a cup of coffee, hearing his singing of the national anthem.
yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to project management, right? Singing the national anthem could be a project management sometimes, because I can't do it.
No, I would delegate that responsibility. I would delegate. I that's not for me. I'm impressed when folks can belt that out.
So
So
thing.
where do we go from here?
Well, I'm going to ask you this though, because I know we're talking about your book coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're planning on doing like a launch with you, right? Is what we're going to do? Is that what I heard?
We'll do a book launch. It's it'll be out in April of 2024.
Okay.
It'll be out on CRC Press. And as we mentioned, the workshop will be rolled out. I'll be rolling out a virtual version of the workshop in the wintertime. So I'm excited about doing that. I'll be delivering the same 2-day session or a similar version for Region 2.
Okay.
So we've got that scheduled.
So you talked to
Anthony
you talked to
assigned me.
Anthony. Okay.
Yes. So I'm excited about doing that. So stay tuned for those folks for Region 2, or if you're close by in Region 1
Yeah.
or
Region 1.
Region
3?
3, yes.
Yeah.
Please, make a note when we get that calendar date out there. And
I highly recommend it. If you're in those regions, take the time, go to the class. I mean, it's going to really open your mind on how to really get these projects done.
and I'll just mention one thing. Shameless plug here.
Shameless plug, absolutely.
Is on my site, which is pinnacleperformancemanagement.com, all one word. Yes, and I know it is a very long URL, and I'm working on shortening it. That's a whole other project, just shortening the URL. There's a little space that describes what the workshop is about. So there's a bit there. There's a flyer for the workshop, so you can get some more information about it.
So I'm going to ask you a couple questions that aren't project manager related.
Okay.
So
Do I need a lawyer?
you may need a lawyer,
Publicist?
publicist for sure. So what do you get out of being here at IAEM?
I think the first thing is, Captain Heflin referred here, is it's just the networking opportunity to meet people and to get to know them. And it's one of those things in emergency management. It's like 3 degrees of separation. I mean, actually, I think, it's like 3 degrees of separation for Todd. How many people do I know who know Todd? And, it sort of go from there. You're never quite sure where you're going to be working an operation, working a response, and work with people that you, met before. And during the pandemic, there were many situations where I was thrown into response, and there were people that I knew, people I didn't know, but also just using your own network to bring expertise into it. There were operations running in New York, for example, that I brought to other places because I do a lot of work with New York City Department of Health and their emergency management department, and just leveraging that knowledge and experience, because it's not just the know-how, it's the know-who, to be able to get things done. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is, as I say, it's like drinking from a fire hose here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great information. I wish I could attend all of the presentations. What's good about it is you can actually download the slides and get the information. And, if that person is given a presentation like in the future, you can actually go and watch that and get that information.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge thing. And it's just, so from a professional development point of view, that learning cycle, being able to learn something, gaining some perspective, it gives you a time to, reboot, take some time away from hopefully the day-to-day or the job, and just learn from people. And then from my point of view, it's being able, like with the workshop, being able to give back and to teach people You know, as I said, I think early on in my career, I wish I had the opportunity when I was younger
Mhm.
to be able to do something like this
Yeah.
and to learn from others. Some ways I learned the hard way,
Right.
but you know, sometimes a kick in the pants sometimes to get moving in the right direction. And that's the way that you know. So to get, you know, it's a part of receiving and giving back here that you know is enjoyable. So
Um, one of the things I think is kind of cool too, and story with you, is I walk into the hotel lobby, and a friend of mine was talking to this other guy, and this other guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm here from New York." I'm like, "Ah," I said, "Hey Andrew, come over here. There's another New Yorker." And like Andrew walks over to the guy, he's like, "Hey, I know him," and Andrew's looking at him like, "Who the heck are you?" Right? And then he goes, "Holy smoke!" And it's Andrew speaking. I'm talking for Andrew here. He goes,
Yeah.
"I didn't even recognize." And so these guys connected, and it's like connecting with people. I always say coming to these is like a family reunion. It's like connecting with people you haven't seen for years.
Reconnecting, yeah, I know. 10 years. I have to go 3,000 miles to reconnect with somebody that I haven't seen in 10 years. So you know, when we work pretty much in the same area.
Yeah, it's
So but it's great, and I think that's the thing is that you know it's you know, as you know, it's working in the trenches.
Yeah.
When you're doing that, really creates those bonds, and I think that that's a valuable thing. You know, and also to process. We you know, sometimes, you know, we do our after action reviews, we do our, you know, our improvement plans and things like that. But from a social emotional part of the thing, being able to connect with people and sit down, have a few beers or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, or have a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be beers or wine or whatever. You know, so you know, just to be able to process and talk about things and sort of review, you know, go back. I mean, you know, think about all the different, you know, incidents
Yeah.
that you've been involved in,
Jeez.
right? And you know, those, you know, remember when did this and we got that done, and you know how we handled it. So you know, that institutional learning, so to speak, you know, just on a passive basis.
You know what's wild is Katrina is like 20 something years ago. You know, 23, 24 years ago.
Yeah,
That's a whole career.
almost 20 years. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, it was 2005, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years more.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy. You know what I mean? To think about how long ago that was. Right. I guess my math is off a little bit, but you know, the point is, it's just like so. It's and then the crazy thing is, and this is cool actually, is that there's a bunch of us that were around then, right? That actually like worked it, and then there's a bunch of new kids coming in that like that's like, you know, history book stuff.
I
You
know.
know, and I think that's cool. You know, I think it's cool. You can be like, we're talking to a couple of students yesterday. You know that you know, they're brand new into this, and it's just nice to see them here and go through that. So that's all.
That's the other thing is I every once in a while I get to see some of my students who, since I teach online,
Yeah.
and you know, I teach so many cohorts, they'll sometimes, you know, they'll hear my name, and you know, they'll come up to me and I get to meet them because I often don't get to meet them in person.
Right.
So you know, and so I, at the last conference that you and I were at, I met one of my students.
Yeah.
We had our
Masks on,
we were
yeah.
still sort of in the middle of COVID,
Yep.
and we had our masks on. And then he looks down, you know, he has his mask on, I have my mask on, and then he looks down at my badge. He says, "Professor Boyarsky." That's what we call him, Professor Boyarsky, for, you know. And then I see him pull down his mask, and I look at his badge, and then I realized, it dawned on me, yes, he was one of my students. I usually remember the ones who did really well.
Yeah, that's true. I remember my students who were great, or the ones that were a pain in the hoo-ha. And I love them all, but
Yes.
those are the ones that you remember.
Yeah.
You know, so
And you know, it's great to see. I think, you know, you ask what I get out of it, and what I get to see them sometimes here in this environment, either representing a jurisdiction,
yeah,
or you know, working for a vendor or for some
yeah,
you know, entity, and that they've progressed in their career,
yeah.
and to see them be successful. So that's very fulfilling. And I, you know, and for me, it's not just. I mean, I teach project management as well, and I've had I had a project manager who worked on the new Tappan Zee Bridge, or
Yeah.
I think they called it the Cuomo Bridge, but
Cuomo.
I think they're probably renaming that soon.
Good
So-
Lord. Good Lord. Oh yeah.
Shh, don't tell the people in New York. I'll have to seek asylum out here in California now.
Oh yeah. Oh. You know what's crazy, dude? Is like, again, talk about being old. You know you're old when people you knew before, like, or knew of at least, before they were like a major, like Cuomo, like it's back in the 80s when I
He
was
was a hut director, right?
well, no, he was just a kid. He was a college student.
Yeah.
You know, when out in Albany, he was a college student going to, I think, Albany Law School or something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And now he's former disgraced governor,
Former-
disgraced governor of New York. Yeah, awesome. We're not going to talk politics here.
Okay.
But-
okay.
But
All right.
But,
Get
all
in
right.
trouble out here.
Yeah, no kidding. But anyway, I do appreciate you stopping by. I thank you for coming out. Thank you for being a friend. And I look forward to doing more of these with you because
Yeah, it's always a pleasure, and I love the show. Listen to it when I can,
appreciate that.
and appreciate the work that you do with the EM network.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, don't forget, stay safe and stay hydrated.